Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Alexander Lukashenko, just 67, is now the last dictator in Europe. Dictator with a capital D. Now, he is also a remarkable man in the sense that he's completely survived the breakup of the Soviet Union. So, Soviet Union broke up, even his country, Belarus now, which used to be Belarusia and was part of the Soviet system, was one of the republics in the Soviet system, that broke away, became a country, but he has inherited a lot of the Soviet party dictatorial power within his own system. Now, some of the other countries which earlier broke out of the Soviet Union into what was called as CIS, have also retained dictatorial powers and have dictators, but those are not in Europe. Those are what the Americans sometimes call the stans, that is Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, etc. But this is one in Europe. And he's done the most dictatorial thing now, so much that old famous dictators like Stalin, like somebody in his neighborhood, I'm deliberately mentioning people in his neighborhood. So Stalin or Ceausescu would be proud of. In fact, if they're sitting somewhere there, they'll be saying, "Well done, boy, you are truly one of our legatees." So what did he do? A plane was flying from Athens, Greece, to Vilnius, that is Lithuania. It was flying over Belarus's airspace. So Belarus flight controller sent a message to the plane saying, "Listen, we think there's a bomb on board. You need to land." And obviously, any pilots who get this message in this civilized environment today, when civil aviation around the world is governed by very strong multilateral rules to which everybody subscribes, right? There is a Chicago Convention, which I'll mention to you in passing going ahead, but Chicago Convention that all nations are signatories to, and by and large, they follow it. So any flight crew would think that there is a warning, there might be a bomb, or at least there is a warning, so let me get down to where I'm being directed to. But to make sure that they did, Belarus Air Force even launched a MiG-29, either to escort it or to threaten it in case it decided to change its mind. So this plane was made to land in Minsk, which is the capital of Belarus. The security people came inside the plane, and what did they do? They picked up one young man, 26 years old. His name is Roman Protasevich, and also his girlfriend who was traveling with him. Remember, they were not traveling into Belarus or out of Belarus. This was a plane going from one country to another, going from Athens to Vilnius, going from Greece to Lithuania. Funnily, both are NATO members, both are also EU members. So this plane was intercepted, it was brought down, and Roman Protasevich and his girlfriend, that is Sofia Sapega, they were taken out. And as they were being taken out, Roman actually said, "I will be killed, I will be executed, my life is in danger." But no passenger could do anything. So they were taken off. The plane was allowed to take off. The plane then landed in Vilnius. There was such concern about the incident that the Prime Minister of Lithuania herself came to receive the plane. She issued a statement saying this is a terrible thing, this should not have happened. But what it did was, it also let Europe and the rest of the world shaken, because such things don't happen in civilized times. So Ursula von der Leyen, she is the president of European Commission, she said that this cannot be allowed, that there must be punishment, something must be done about this. And also, several other European nations issued joint statements, also America, saying that this is unacceptable. Dominic Raab, the UK Foreign Secretary, also issued a statement saying that this is a violation of Convention of Articles 3 and 4 of Chicago Convention. What are Article 3 and 4? Article 3 says every state must refrain from resorting to the use of weapons against civil aircraft in flight, and that in the case of an interception, that is, in case an interception becomes necessary in extreme circumstances, safety safety of lives of persons on board and safety of the plane must be ensured. Both were endangered in this case, there is no doubt about that. And as a result, many European countries already are now banning Belarus aircraft from flying to their countries. Belarus's own airline has been banned by most countries now. Airline, by the way, is called Laroia. So next time some travel agent sells you a ticket, be careful. It may not be able to go to many places. And also, now more and more countries are barring Belarus's airspace for their aircraft to fly in. Now, you know, when you fly, say, from India to the West, already there are many countries where you worry. You fly over Afghanistan, you worry. Are there some loose missiles floating there? And you're just hoping that my plane is high enough for at least stingers. But you never know what else is floating in that area. Then you saw in Ukraine earlier that Malaysian aircraft MH17, that was a time when Malaysian Airlines had a particularly bad stretch of luck. MH17 was shot down obviously by a Russian missile, although everybody blames everybody, but it's quite well known, it's quite well established that this was a Russian missile. There might be still questions about who fired the missile, but it was a Russian missile. Similarly, you go over parts of Iraq, parts of the Middle East, you again worry because you don't know who's in charge. To that troublesome airspace is also added Belarus. Belarus is not a small country, it's a small population of just about a crore of people. In fact, not even a crore, about 94 and a half lakhs. And it's a population that is not going up. But it is 207,000 square kilometers of area, so that much more airspace. So this is Chicago Convention Article 3, and Chicago Convention Article 4 quite simply says that each contracting state agrees not to use civil aviation for any purpose inconsistent with the aim of this convention. What did Belarus do in this case? They actually intercepted someone else's plane going from some other place from another country into another country for purposes other than civil aviation, to whisk one of their dissidents out. Now, dissidents leaving Belarus is a well-known and a familiar phenomenon because Lukashenko is truly, I won't even say he's a Soviet-style dictator, he's a Ceausescu-style dictator. He's run his country since his country broke away from USSR. He used to be a soldier in the Red Army, in a way, in the frontier guards or in the frontier force. He was an officer and also a party official there. And he's brought in the same culture and he's continued on. He holds some kind of an election. But we know the funny things that happened in his election. Last year, big protests broke out in his country because he rigged his election. And we talked about this in our episode 558. Now, he's only survived because of Putin's help. So anytime the world puts pressure on him, even when he fixed his election, throughout his dissidents, most of his dissidents have gone to neighboring countries. They've gone to the Baltic countries, that is Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, or they've gone to Poland, or they've gone to Ukraine. Those are the countries around Belarus. In fact, if you look at that part of Europe, the map of that part of Europe, it's quite complicated because that map has been drawn and redrawn in the last 150 years. So to be able to understand that region, you really need to be an expert on the European history of 19th and 20th century, particularly 20th century, which I am not, so I'm not going there. But if you see, these are many countries. That will indicate to you that Belarus is among the most European republics to come out, to become part of the Soviet Union and to come out of Soviet Union. Others being Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, all small population countries, Ukraine, and so on. Now, his view or his method of dealing with all global pressures is, जानते नहीं मेरा बाप कौन है, मेरा बाप कौन है, मेरे बाप का नाम है Vladimir Putin. So Putin it is, and even after this incident, when he faced global opprobrium, very strong global opprobrium, the first thing that happened was that he and Putin had a conversation, and then they said they're soon going to have a meeting. Now, even when he faced protests last year after he rigged his election, the candidate who came second got only 10% of the vote. And I'm surprised. I suspect some people got punished by Lukashenko for allowing her to get at least 10% of the vote. That is Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. She also left the country, and she's also in one of the neighboring countries in exile, because it's dangerous to be in Belarus if Lukashenko doesn't like you. He also has a law which says that any extremist activity gets death sentence, and death sentence in Belarus is very simple. There is no nicety, appeal, shapil, vakil, dalil, nothing. Once you are pronounced guilty, which usually people do by confessing, because who wants to go through this whole formality of the process, because you know it's going to end up the same way. You are basically early morning at dawn made to sit on your knees, and somebody puts one bullet in the back of your head. That is the method in which they execute people accused of being extremists. So now even this poor fellow, this Roman Protasevich, who's just 26, in fact, he wasn't even born. It was 1 year before he was born, Lukashenko became the boss of his country. This fellow has already spoken on video, and that video has been put out by some Belarus activists on Twitter, and I'm sharing one of those tweets with you, where he quote unquote confesses to his crime and says that he is cooperating with the investigating authorities, because what choice has he got? He just has to give them the answers that they want. And I think all people try to do, many people try to do in these cases, is not to prolong their agony, unfortunately, that this is going to happen. So better sooner than later. So he's getting away with that. Now, what is it that Roman Protasevich had done? He started running a YouTube and a Telegram channel called Nexta. Now, Nexta can means who next, right, in sort of conventional understanding that we might have from English language, but it's also a play on Nehta, N-E-H-T-A. What that means in Belarusian is anonymous. So this was a kind of anonymous channel which led a lot of the dissidents against Lukashenko. This, by the way, this platform had started many years ago as a music channel, as a popular music channel. Then it got converted into this. This was declared an extremist organization because Lukashenko was not able to control it, and a lot of people in the global media also started saying, see, this is a wonderful story of digital technology defeating an old-fashioned Soviet-style dictator. So he used the method of an old-fashioned Soviet-style dictator and declared this platform an extremist organization, which means anybody who was involved with this platform can now be asked to kneel on his or her knees and be gifted a bullet in the back of his or her head. So that is the situation that Belarus is now in. In fact, last year when these protests were going on and he was in trouble, by September last year, people around the world said that, look, Lukashenko is over now. The last European dictator is gone. It was at that time that Putin came to his help, not just economically, not just politically, not just diplomatically, but he even sent a team of advisors, which also included a bunch of Russian quote-unquote journalists who helped him run his propaganda and to counter critical propaganda or critical coverage from the other side. And he was unable to control it. So much so that Russia actually goes way out of its way to help Belarus now, because Belarus's economy is in a shambles, because it's under a lot of sanctions now after what Lukashenko has done to his democracy and to his people and to his civil rights. He's got sanctions from EU, US, all kinds of places. Now, what the Russians have done on the other hand is, Russians themselves face sanctions from many Western countries. So, Russians let Belarus import goods from those countries, particularly the kind of goods that the richer Russians want. Italian cheese, for example, or maybe some chocolates or shrimp, which is not found that much in Russia through the year. So all of that stuff's into Belarus and it's repackaged as made in Belarus. And there are jokes in Russia, as I read up, in fact, in an article in Al Jazeera, which I'll be sharing with you, about made in Belarus shrimp or made in Belarus Italian cheese, etc., etc. So all this is done to help Belarus make some money so that this dictator can survive. And this dictator is so merciless that not only has he caught this guy, and God knows what he'll do with this 26-year-old, even his father, who was a serving colonel in the Belarus army, he's been stripped of his rank by an executive decree. Once again, no appeal, no vakil, no dalil. But the issue of this flight, that is Boeing 737, Ryanair 4979. Ryanair is a very low budget, ultra low budget Irish airline. So this is one European country flying from a second European country going to a third European country, and there's a common connection of NATO, EU. So this is not a situation now that the Western powers can ignore forever just because it's inconvenient. Nobody wants to take panga with Vladimir Putin. And also it's likely, it's possible, although you never know, there is honor among, although you never know how these things work, but it is quite possible that with this act, Lukashenko may have pushed his goodwill with Putin as well. But what happens, we will see in the course of time. We don't know for sure. I will at this point read just one line from a statement issued by governments of US, Ireland, Germany, Lithuania, Poland, Czech Republic, and many others. And the line is, quote, "This act of state terrorism and kidnapping is a threat to all those who travel in Europe and beyond. It can't be allowed to stand." Now, what they will do to assert their authority, we don't know. What their options are, also we don't know. But this is the situation in Belarus right now, and this is a new threat in mid-air. Now, imagine you're just flying a civil airliner from one country A to country B, an airliner owned by country C, all three peaceable countries, respective members of all global organizations, multilateral organizations, and yet a third country over which you are flying decides to hijack your aircraft. So this is a state hijacking of another state's aircraft over free skies. This is a terrible thing to happen, and this will have consequences. Having said that, I know that you've also been following very closely the episodes of Cut the Clutter that I've done on the new theories on the possible lab leak of the virus from Wuhan. So some more stuff has come out since my last episode of Cut the Clutter, which was yesterday, 753. So I'm not going into detail. I'm just telling you that I'm sharing two more pieces of writing with you. One is an article by Aaron Blake in the Washington Post, and very important. He says, he admits to something. In fact, I mentioned it in my 753 yesterday. He says that possibly we got so polarized in Trump's times that we overcorrected in some cases, particularly when Trump made his allegations that this may have been a lab-made virus that escaped from the virus. So this is a correction, very significant correction by mainstream media in the US. And with this, there is also an article by Don McNeil Jr., who is a dada of science reporting in America. In fact, he recently left after decades of service in the New York Times as its chief science reporter. He's done a long piece on Medium where he says something. Remember, I keep using the example of Occam's razor. Occam's razor is a concept whereby if something looks like the most obvious conclusion, then that is likely to be the true story instead of many others which may be speculated, for which little bits of evidence may be available, but too much needs to fall in place. So he now says in his article that it looks like the weight of Occam's razor, which was earlier towards this being purely a naturally evolved virus, is now shifting towards the lab leak theory. So that is now becoming like the most obvious answer. So once again, this is a story that's moving forward. And having said that, I can't resist the temptation of making connections of what's happening today with names, issues, events, incidents we might remember from history. So remember the name Andrei Gromyko. Andrei Gromyko was the famous Soviet foreign minister, one of the most powerful diplomats in the world, also because he's just he represented a very powerful government, the second superpower in that period. Second, the longest serving foreign minister, at least of a power of any size. He was foreign minister of the Soviet Union between 1957 and 1985, and we saw him in India often enough. He was traveling all the time to India, or Indian prime ministers and others were meeting him. He was our key interlocutor in the Soviet Union. In fact, he was the world's key interlocutor in the Soviet Union. 85, he ceased to be foreign minister, replaced by Shevardnadze, and became chairman of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet between 1985 and 88. 89, the Soviet Union broke up. So why am I mentioning Andrei Gromyko's name here? Because I said there is a connection. Andrei Gromyko was from Belarus, or what used to be Belarusia in the past.